Hey YouTube, what is up? I know I haven't made a video in a little while, but I was able to actually go to regionals a little while ago, and I got my nationals invite at that regionals. That's what this deck profile is for. My blue eyes came in clutch. I got 37th place in general overall, and it's actually pretty good considering how the tournament fucked me a bunch. I'll explain that later in the video, but then I also found out I won my round for the next great Yugi tuber, and if any of you guys voted for me, I greatly appreciate it. So I had to make a video for that. I think the video should be up by now, so I'll put a link in the description so you can see it, or I'll put an annotation up here. If you guys can vote for me, I'd fucking greatly appreciate it. I can get a better webcam that doesn't autofocus every 10 fucking seconds. And then after that, I pretty much went to Comic-Con for 4 days straight, and I didn't get a lot of sleep, went to a lot of parties and stuff like that, and I slept like 17 hours the next day, so pretty much I woke up like 3 a.m. on Tuesday after falling asleep on Sunday. It was really fucking weird. But now I'm ready to go, and I'll give you guys a deck profile of my Blue Eyes deck that got me my Nationals invite, and I'll explain how the tournament kind of fucked me a little bit, which was really weird. I'm just gonna skip some of the staple stuff because I don't think you guys need an explanation as to why I'm running 3 Blue Eyes White Dragon. That doesn't seem like it's something that's necessary. So 3 Blue Eyes, 3 Alternative, 2 Spirit of White, pretty much staple in this deck. And here's where my deck differs a little bit. I main decked 2 Gameciel, the Sea Turtle Kaiju, as well as 2 Max C. This is basically my turn 2 strategy. If I didn't get to go first, I needed a way to actually play out of my opponent's board, and Max C and Gameciel, the Sea Turtle Kaiju, were my strategy. Max C would just slow my opponent down, or I draw the hand advantage to stop them on the next turn, and Gameciel would allow me to get rid of really big problem cards. In the Blue Eyes mirror match, if your opponent makes Spirit Dragon going first, and then they make YUGIOH, it's really tough to get out of it. If your opponent makes something like Hope Harbinger, Titanic Galaxy, that's even worse because Blue Eyes loves to use spells, so I always use Gameciel to get rid of a problem card, and it's never dead because you could just ditch it off of a trade-in to draw 2 completely new cards, so that's why I really like to run it. Otherwise, I would have run the Sticky String Kaiju, but this card is just amazing, especially in the mirror match. If someone were to drop Kaikimura Drago against me and I couldn't get out of it, I could just drop Gameciel on top of it because it's special summoned, but it's a water monster. And then again, staple cards, 3 Whitestone of Ancients, 3 Sage with Eyes of Blue. Don't really want to run less than that. 1 Whitestone of Legend, also pretty staple. Here's where my deck varied a little bit. I decided to run 1 Master with Eyes of Blue because this card is absolutely amazing. It really did save me a lot. It came in clutch very late game against other Blue Eyes players. In the mirror match, this card is what allows you to outgrind your opponent, so it basically recurred my Spirit Dragon from the graveyard a ton. I can normal summon something like Glow Bulb, pop it with Master to bring back a Spirit Dragon in my graveyard, the Synchro, and then from there I could just special summon the Glow Bulb back, never losing field advantage, and then I could put Master back in deck so I could search it out later with Sage. The play I liked to do, especially if it had Master in graveyard, is I'd use Blue Eye Spirit Dragon's effect to tag out into Michael, use Michael's effect to banish any problem cards, and then I'd use Master to turn the Michael back into Blue Eye Spirit Dragon, and then just shuffle Master back into deck and keep going. It was basically a way to tag back into Spirit Dragon after I tagged out of it, because Spirit Dragon is inherently better than any of the cards it brings out. Once you use their effects, they're pretty much garbage, but Spirit Dragon has a lot of effects that are really good. Even though Spirit Dragon itself can't tag out again, you can negate any summon of 2 or more monsters at the same time. You can negate grave effects, and that really does hurt, especially in something like the Burning Abyss matchup. You can actually tag out into Michael, banish their shit, and then keep going from there. Bring back Spirit Dragon, and then just negate all their grave effects, and they really can't do anything about it. And for another card that some Blue Eyes players play, but I didn't enjoy personally at first, was Glow Bulb, but the more I used Glow Bulb and 1-for-1 in testing, I really enjoyed both of them in the deck. You can use Glow Bulb to pretty much unbrick your hand. If you have 1-for-1 or Glow Bulb in your hand, as well as a Sage, you can pretty much guarantee a Spirit Dragon, and that's a really big play in the Blue Eyes deck. Basically, you'd normal summon the Glow Bulb, or 1-for-1 bring out Glow Bulb, and then you use Sage, pop Glow Bulb, special summon any Blue Eyes from your deck that can be special summoned. They're always level 8, so it doesn't matter which one you choose, and then you just bring back Glow Bulb, Synchro into a Spirit Dragon, and then go off from there. So you could always have another play, and if you used 1-for-1, you still had your normal summon, so you could make something like Crystal Wing if you really wanted to. So Glow Bulb really just helped me out a lot late game, especially when I'd use Glow Bulb as a normal summon tuner, and then late game I'd special summon it back because my opponent forgot about it, forgot I had a way to go into something like Crystal Wing, and they just let most of my plays rock because they didn't think I had anything, they thought I was bluffing, and then I used the Glow Bulb that I normal summoned early on but didn't use its special summon effect yet to actually go for Crystal Wing for game. Another card I run that not many people do is the Fabled Catsith. I basically took Effect Veiler out of this deck completely. I don't even side it. Effect Veiler in my mind is actually pretty much garbage. The Fabled Catsith is a way better card to search, a way better card to use, and a way better card to ditch in pretty much every situation than Effect Veiler. Effect Veiler doesn't really stop that much. The Fabled Catsith really does help you a lot. The Fabled Catsith, if it's discarded, allows you to pop a face-up card on your opponent's side of the field, so you can use it to get rid of Vanity's Fiend, you can use it to get rid of Vanity's Emptiness, you can get rid of fucking pretty much any face-up card. If your opponent has something like Anti-Spell, you could pop it with Catsith. Catsith, which is something that I actually did. I used Twin Twister to ditch Catsith, I popped the 2 set with Twin Twister, and then I used the Catsith to pop Anti-Spell. So basically, my opponent scooped from that point on because they had no back row, no monsters on field, and then I was able to push for a shit ton of damage. The Catsith is something that you could also recur really easily thanks to cards like Master and Sage. Master allows you to get the Catsith back from graveyard. You just normal summon Master, he adds back any light tuner, I'm pretty sure level 1 light tuner, something like that, but you could pretty much bring back the Catsith or any of these guys to your hand. So I would use the Catsith, summon Master, put Catsith back in my hand, and then use it again because there's no once per turn clause on it, so it's pretty much broken. You can pop your opponent's entire field if you could just keep recurring it in some way. You can even search it with Sage, which makes this card even more alive. That's why I only had to run one of them, because it's easy to get back from the graveyard and it's easy to search out for my deck because I run 3 cards that could search it and 1 card that could bring it back from the graveyard. All in all, I gotta say the Fabled Catsith was probably one of my favorite cards to run in this deck because of how handy it was. It just basically, anytime I had a problem, the Catsith solved it. And game 1, especially if I dead drew this card and my opponent didn't know I had it in hand, I'd have a set Phoenix Wing Blast, which they would usually anticipate, but they wouldn't anticipate me ditching the Fabled Catsith off of it. So basically they'd have 2 cards, one face down, one face up, usually a monster and a set spell or trap. I'd use Phoenix Wing Blast to put the trap or spell back on the top of their deck, and then I'd use Catsith to pop their monster, and they'd have an empty field, which usually left a lot of people confused because they actually have to read Catsith. Not many people seem to know what it did. I ran 1/1-for-1 like I said before, basically just a special summon my Glow Bulb. If my Glow Bulb's dead because I banished it with Pot of Desires, I just use 1/1 to bring out other cards. Basically, Blue Eyes thrives from having cards being sent to the graveyard, and special summoning your tuners just really speeds up your deck a shit ton. So if you could ditch a White Stone of Ancients to special summon something like a Glow Bulb, you could do a lot in 1 turn. You can banish a lot of back row thanks to White Stone being sent to the graveyard, having its end phase effect trigger, or you can use White Stone to recur cards that are in your graveyard by banishing White Stone to add something like Alternative to your hand so you can have another play. I ran 3 Return of the Dragon Lords and 2 Silver's Cry. I originally was thinking about putting 1 Silver's Cry in the deck, but I really didn't have a lot of plays on my opponent's turn, and Silver's Cry was one of them. You could also use it for a kind of a surprise OTK. I would have Dragon Spirit of White on field alongside Alternative. I'd have Blue Eyes in hand with Silver's Cry. They'd have 2 monsters, and they'd think they would survive the turn, but basically I'd use Dragon Spirit of White to attack one of their monsters, then I'd tag out Spirit of White into Blue Eyes. I use Alternative to kill another monster, attack directly with Blue Eyes White Dragon so they take 3k, and then I'd Silver's Cry bring back the Dragon Spirit of White that I tagged out from before and banish any back row if they had any, and attack again for 5500 directly on top of any other damage that I did with the Dragon Spirit of White first attack and the Blue Eyes Alternative attack. So basically they were dead at that point. There's a lot of plays you could do involving Silver's Cry, and on your opponent's turn it's just even better because you can use it to instantly get rid of back row you don't like. If your opponent sets a Pendulum Scale, you can use Silver's Cry to get rid of it really easily if you just bring back the Dragon Spirit of White. So that's why I like to run 2. I run 2 Pot of Desires in this deck. I have 3, but I don't like to use 3 because I feel like I draw Pot of Desires off of Pot of Desires way too much if I have 3 in my deck, or I dead draw it and I don't want it in my hand, and I have cards I'd rather ditch than Pot of Desires to send to the graveyard. There's only one time where I drew the second Pot of Desires and it actually came in clutch and won me the game. Basically, we are in game 3, turn 5, we were in time, so it was my last turn to do damage, otherwise I would lose. He made a Utopic Future in defense position, which is really dirty because you really can't get over it that easily. In a Blue Eyes deck, you can't pop it with Alternative because it would just detach materials to save itself. So what I did was I Pot of Desires to pretty much the last 3 cards in my deck, so I had 1 card left in deck and I drew 2, and I drew the cards I needed to actually make a Galaxy Eye Cypher, take his monster, and then I attacked for 3k directly. So he didn't actually get to survive the turn because he didn't know I had Pot of Desires in hand, and that gave me enough materials to actually win the game, and that was pretty much the most clutch win I ever had in the tournament. I also run 3 Trade-In for obvious reasons. 1 Cards of Contents because 2 was making me brick for some reason. I was trying 3 at one point and that was just really brick, so I only run 1. It's something you don't use all that often because you only really have 4 targets for it, so I didn't want to run more than 1 of them because I didn't have that many targets. I ran 3 Melody of the Awakening Dragon because it's an amazing card that kickstarts your deck. You could ditch the Fabled Catsith to get out of any locks with this card. It's pretty broken, and that's why I like to use it. It basically guarantees you can make an alternative play, and you can pop one of your opponent's monsters if you have the Fabled Catsith in hand or a way to get it to hand. I ran 1 Dragon Shrine because I didn't like using 2. Usually late game I drew it and it was pretty much dead, so I only run 1. I run 1 Soul Charge just to make a broken board that my opponent can't get out of. Doesn't even matter if you draw this late game, you can still make a pretty broken board, which is actually how I got my Nats invite, because in the last round that I had to win, basically round 9 of the tournament, I used Soul Charge at the right time. I basically brought back a ridiculous board that my opponent couldn't get over, and then I swung for gain the next turn, and that really did save me. Soul Charge top decking is pretty real with this deck. I ran one Foolish Burial just so I could send the Glow Up Bulb or the Master to the graveyard so I could use their effects. If I was going to use Pot of Desires and I didn't see Glow Up Bulb yet, I'd use the Foolish Burial to ditch the Glow Up Bulb so that I could actually bring it back and make a Spirit Dragon regardless of whether or not I had a normal tuner to summon after that, and if I did, I could actually make Crystal Wing. So using Foolish Burial pretty much just allowed me to get cards I wanted to keep out of my deck so that I could use them later before I did something like Pot of Desires. I also ran 2 Phoenix Wing Wind Blast, which also came in pretty clutch. This card allowed me to not die a shit ton. This card saved me a ton, especially when used in tandem with the Fabled Catif. Getting rid of 2 cards your opponent controls and making them brick on the next turn is actually a really good play. And then I also ran 1 main decked Vanity's Emptiness because this card locks your opponent out so much it's not even funny. And now onto my extra deck. I played 1 Azure Eyes Silver Dragon. 2 seemed unnecessary. I felt like if I had to go into the second one, I was pretty much going to lose anyway, and I was just stalling, so I only ran 1 of these. I ran 2 Spirit Dragon of White because I could recur it very easily with cards like Master, so I could just bring it back as much as I wanted. I could bring it back with Soul Charge. There are a lot of plays I had to actually bring back the Spirit Dragon, so I didn't need to bring 3. I could also put it back in my extra deck with cards like White Stone of Ancients, so I really didn't feel like 3 was necessary. 2 was the perfect amount. I ran 1 Crystal Wing, but only brought it out if I was going for the OTK, and I want to negate my opponent's effects on my turn. This card is actually pretty weak in this format because your opponent can just use alternative to bait it out, Return of the Dragon Lords, bring back that alternative, and then they pop your monster and then you just cry from there. It's something that happened to me a lot in testing, so I didn't like to actually use it as a turn 1 play, but I did like to use it when I was going for the OTK because you could basically just swing over any monster for free. I ran 1 Stardust Spark Dragon just to protect any cards I felt like I needed to keep on board, especially if I had something like a Vanity's Emptiness and a Stardust Spark. That's a pretty dangerous combination that you really can't get out of all that easily. I also ran 1 Michael the Arch Lightsworn because I could use a pretty dirty play with the Master to actually banish my opponent's cards and then use Master to turn the Michael that is now on my field back into Spirit Dragon, and then I'd have a Spirit Dragon in defense. I only use Moonlight pretty much on my opponent's turn because that's the best time to use it. If I wanted to make Crystal Wing, I'd actually save it with something like Return of the Dragon Lords. I use Moonlight pretty much exclusively on my opponent's turn, and there's a pretty interesting interaction with 2 Spirit Dragons. So basically, if you have a Spirit Dragon and your opponent has one, and whoever tags out first is the person that loses. If they tag out into Azure Eyes, doesn't matter because you tag out at the same time. You basically chain your tag out to theirs, and you bring out Moonlight. So Moonlight would bounce Azure Eyes before it has a chance to fully resolve, so you could actually just get rid of your opponent's board. So there was a lot of times where a lot of people I was playing actually knew that, and we were both stuck in a stalemate where we both had Spirit Dragon, and neither of us wanted to tag out because the other would just bounce the last card, and then we'd be left with an empty board. Now for the rank 8s, which I kind of focused a lot more on than most of the synchro plays. The synchro plays were really good in this deck, but the rank 8 plays were really what came in clutch a lot. I ran 1 Dark Matter just to kickstart my deck, especially if I had a brick hand and I wanted to set up, especially if I wanted to set up for something like a Soul Charge play. I can make this pretty easily. Soul Charge, bring back the 3 cards I just sent to the graveyard, and then go from there. Full Armor Photon I liked a lot because I could basically make Galaxy Eyes Cypher, take my opponent's card, and then put Full Armor Photon on it if I took a XYZ monster, and I usually did. I'd take their Beatrice, put Full Armor Photon on top of it, pop their Fogblade that was locking one of my other monsters, and attack from there. I use Dragulon exclusively for the mirror match. You could Dragulon, take your opponent's Galaxy Eyes Dark Matter, and then punch for about 7k, which is pretty ridiculous. I run 1 Galaxy Eyes Cypher because taking your opponent's monsters is absolutely silly, and the fact that if you take an XYZ monster, you can put any of these guys on top of that monster and then basically get their effects off too is pretty nuts. Your opponent doesn't get their monsters back, they don't get the materials. It's pretty silly to use Galaxy Eyes Cypher, and that's why I love it. Even though I got rid of my Blue Eyes deck, that's why I'm net decking this right now, I'm actually keeping the Cypher because I plan to use it for DDDs. I also run 1 Hope Harbinger Titanic Galaxy because this card stops my opponent's plays. It stops the Raigeki. If I can make a board with this and a Spirit Dragon in defense position, I wouldn't have to tag out of fear. I could actually just let it rock. I mean, if they drop Gameciel, they drop Gameciel. Can't really stop that. But if they had Raigeki or Dark Hole or something like that, it really wouldn't matter. Especially if I had something like Return of the Dragon Lords in the graveyard, I'd banish that and then use this to stop any spells like Trade-In, stop Pot of Desires, a whole bunch of wacky shit. If you use this with Pot of Desires, I'm pretty sure your opponent banishes 10 and then they don't draw 2, and then you just take their Pot of Desires and put it under this card, which is a pretty wacky interaction. I also run 1 Tachyon. This is mostly for the BA matchup. This basically just stops their monsters from going off, and then once the cards go to the graveyard, they get their effects anyway, but then Tachyon gets 1,000 boosts for every effect that goes off, and he can make a second attack. So basically, if they have Dante in defense position and 2 BA cards underneath it, if they want to resolve those cards, I'm basically going to punch them for 5k or 6k on the second attack, which is pretty nuts. So it was a really, really good card. It came in handy a lot, and it was really good, but only pretty much for the BA matchup. I ran 1 Heliopolis. This card is basically just non-targeting destruction, and what I love about its effect is you don't have to reveal the amount of cards you're discarding. The only cost for this is detaching. So you detach, and if your opponent chooses not to negate it, if you wanted to discard a hand of 5 monsters and pop 5 cards on their field and then attack for 3k, you could do it. They don't know how many cards you're discarding or how many cards you're trying to destroy. All they know is you're going to destroy a random amount, and they have to guess how many of the monsters that are in your hand and on your side of the field you're going to destroy to pop their cards. And I ran 1 Alcei just to make my opponent brick. There was one time where I used Alcei. It was actually the same match where I used Galaxy Ice Cypher to win. I made Alcei, called Soul Charge, revealed Soul Charge as my top card, so I would have added it to my hand, and my opponent fog bladed me. So I knew I had Soul Charge on the top of my deck, and I couldn't get to it because they fog bladed me, so I just had to put it back, and that was a really sad play. But then after that, that's when I used my desires, and I just went off and won the game. But still, it kind of sucks to have this card fog bladed, especially if you know the top card of your deck was Soul Charge, and you actually managed to call it right, which is pretty ridiculous. And for my side deck, I have 1 extra Gameciel. I liked to run 3 against decks that I knew I'd need to get rid of their monsters. Stuff like BA, where I knew I need to get rid of the turn 1 Beatrice, something like the Blue Eyes Mirror match, and I knew I was going second. I'd put in the 3rd Gameciel so I had a higher chance of drawing it, so I can get rid of their Spirit Dragon without facing any of the repercussions of trying to destroy it. I also ran 2 Kaikimaro Drago, which I was a big fan of before, but at the tournament, this card actually sucked. There's a game where I sided this in, drew it going first, and I didn't have any dragons to reveal, so it was pretty much dead. If I was to continue playing Blue Eyes, I probably wouldn't use this card because it's too easy to get rid of in my mind, especially when your opponents can main deck things like Gamaseals or Kaiju, or run Dark Hole, or run Raigeki, or Interrupted Kaiju Slumber. There's a lot of stuff that actually gets rid of this card, and I don't think it's that good, so I'd probably take it out of my side from now on. I ran 2 Ghost Ogre because it's really good in the mirror match. It also is amazing against the water matchup, and that's mostly what I ran it for. I was expecting to play a lot more water than I did. I actually didn't play the water matchup once, but there was water to the left and to the right of me a ton, so I was fearing it, so I knew I had to put Ghost Ogre in just in case, and it's really good in the Blue Eyes matchup anyway, because you could chain it to Azure Eyes, and then Azure Eyes basically just gets popped because its effect doesn't get to resolve. So it came in handy just for wiping my opponent's boards, but because I didn't end up playing any water matches, I just used this against Blue Eyes and against Pendulum. I ran 1 Raigeki and 1 Dark Hole because I was fearing getting locked out a lot by Vanity's Fiend and stuff like that. So if I knew my opponent was playing Burning Abyss, I knew they could main deck Vanities, so I'd side this in going second because I knew I had a chance of having a turn 1 Vanities thrown on me, and in case I didn't draw the Fabled Catith and a way to discard it, I could just use Raigeki, or I could use Dark Hole to get rid of problem cards. I ran 2 Book of Eclipse for the same reason. If I did get locked out or anything like that, I could just flip this card, let my opponent set their monsters, and then I can basically special summon as much as I want because Vanity's Fiend is in defense. And I just kill the Vanity's Fiend while it's in face down defense position, and they couldn't do anything about it. They don't draw because they don't have any cards on the field to flip back up, and it was pretty much a free Book of Moon for their entire field. So that's why I like to run 2 of these. It didn't come up all that often, to be honest with you, but it was really useful in testing, and that's why I put it in. And I was expecting a shit ton more Demise and Pendulum players, but I did run 3 Twin Twister and 3 Anti-Spell for pretty much the freest Pendulum matchup. I only went up against 1 Pendulum deck, and when I did, I absolutely decimated him because of my side deck and because of how well the Blue Eyes matchup is pretty much against Pendulum in general, but it really was unexpected how little I played Demise players. I was expecting a lot of Demise decks, which is why I ran 3 Twin Twister, but I really just didn't see it. And that's it for this profile, guys. I'll quickly explain what I meant by when I said they were fucking me over a little bit. Pretty much this was the weirdest tournament I ever actually played in. I'm surprised I actually got a Nationals invite. I'm surprised I got 37th place because of how much they fucked me. Basically, after round 1, I got a round 2 bye. I lost the first round, so after the round 2 bye, I was literally the lowest standing person at the tournament. I think I was table 172, so I was pretty much, I guess, like 350th place at this regional, which was pretty sucky for me. And then I won a match, I won the next round, and then they accidentally dropped me from the tournament. So I got fucked over again. They were able to reinstate me, but they gave me like a weird tie-bye thing, so that fucked me even more. At that point, I was like table 140 something, so then I had to climb all the way up, and then pretty much I won, I think, 3 or 4 games in a row at that point. And then when I was playing the Blue Eyes mirror match, my opponent and I decided to power shuffle before we actually started, and the clock was, I think, 30 seconds into the round, and the judge came over and goes, "Guys, why didn't you start yet?" And we told him we were shuffling, and he goes, "I'm giving you both a game 1 loss," and watched us play for the round. So pretty much my opponent opened up Soul Charge and Blue Eyes going first. He won. I'm not mad at the guy that, beat me. He played a good game, but it sucks that I didn't get a chance to even go round 2. I didn't get a chance to side or anything like that because the judge was mad that we started 30 seconds into the round, which is something that was really fucking weird. But anyway, that's pretty much how they kind of mess with me at this tournament. So that's pretty much what I meant by saying they kind of mess with me at this tournament. I'm not sure how I even managed to actually top with how they kept fucking me, dropping me from the tournament, giving me game losses. So yeah, it was a pretty weird tournament, but all in all, I'm surprised I got my Nats invite, and I'm glad I did. But that's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Schwabs, or like my Facebook page to see when I post these videos. You can find my next great YouTuber competition video in the description down below as well. And if you really enjoyed it, don't forget to click subscribe because it's free, it's fun, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one.